Hello, welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. Happy 2023. I hope you passed the end of 2022 in a safe manner and potentially sane. Not going to judge. I played games online for a while and I think fell asleep in this chair a little bit before midnight. So if anything really blew up, I don't think I knew. I have been discussing a D&D game that I'm running. Oh, last week. I missed last week. Technical difficulties. Which hopefully you may have noticed for a few videos now that the picture quality has been a little degraded. I haven't had the clarity or the resolution that I probably ought to have, and that should be fixed now. I'm in the bad habit of updating software whenever I find out there's an update, and between OBS and the Adobe suite, in particular Premiere, sometimes things change and I don't catch all of the fine print in the release notes. So when one of these programs stops talking to the other one the way I need it to, you get technical difficulties and I miss a week. Fortunately, I have the world's most dedicated IT person living across the hall from me. Thank you again, Andrew, for all of the help. And here's hoping that works out. I have some footage from the D&D game that we played with the map on Owlbear Rodeo, like I was talking about in my last episode. I have not parsed it for this, and I don't know how it would really fly. It's not gripping television. It's me making notes on a map until you can't see what the actual figures are doing. But I can discuss how the fight went, and I probably should, because it's an exercise in what happens when I do take some time to prepare. I think the theme of this one's going to be the preparation and striking a balance. A balance that's somewhere better than over-preparing, slightly better than under-preparing, and having to hit that middle ground where things work about the way they should. It's tricky, and your mileage may vary because it all depends on the group that you're dealing with. I spent a good while making counters for the 5 groups of opponents that the party was going to face. That being, just a recap for folks who might not have caught the last episode. The Warriors Wednesday are in a game where they're all playing paladins of one shape or form. 2 of them are multi-class. There's a paladin monk and a paladin artificer in the group. And a couple of others. My NPC has multi-classed paladin barbarian, which is amazing because he's a Muppet born, and that came into play. The paladin artificer, Brother Wayland, has been courting a dwarven forge mistress for some time, and they made it to the dwarven forge world via some spell jamming, because I'm not going to buy that book and not use it, to get her father's blessing for the wedding. And it turns out that there are 5 suitors, and there had to be a battle of the suitors to see if the blessing could be given to Brother Wayland. And Brother Wayland's player, Wayne, is nailed down a speech to give the father about how many fucks he did not give about the entire thing. And it turned out to be a deeper thing that had ramifications beyond just a gender measuring contest amongst the suitors. So there's reasons this had to happen, mostly involving unlocking potential for the bride-to-be. So each of the 5 suitors brought five suitors, each of whom brought five of their own retinue. So Brother Wayland and the rest of the PCs were in this, and that was a battle with 36 individuals involved, 30 of whom I was in control of. The battle is being fought on a map of a grand high dwarven forge, as the father of the bride is a forge master, the forge master of the high dwarven forge world. And man, we just set aside an entire session, and this was going to be the fight. My prep was I made the map. I doctored the map up a little bit so that there was a little bit more clear idea of what was where all the elevations there were. Not a lot of stuff, but there was a couple of things that could be used as terrain, which were used very effectively during the fight. And I made counters. I made tokens. Each of the 6 suitors had 5 suitors numbers. Each of the 5 suitors had their own unique token. And not only did they have their own unique token, but their tokens had a ring on the outside of them that was a design unique to them. Then I made 5 generic dwarf faces and gave them the rings of the suitor that they were working for. I needed to zoom in a couple of times to see exactly who I was dealing with, but it worked out pretty well. That was an afternoon to get all the tokens done, and almost as much time to get them uploaded to Owlbear, just technical difficulties and my brain not working right. And then I had a few plans, a few tricks and things in the background, and the politics of the situation were Brother Wayland and the crew just got thrown into this thing. There was very little explanation before they got there. That was going to happen afterwards, because Brother Wayland really wanted to get on with this, and there is nothing that you can do to stop a group of paladins from getting into a fight if they really want to. And they wanted to. I've got to throw them some combat every so often. I'll run a D&D game. I'll run a campaign that has no combat in it. I have no problems with that. I believe and have all for a very long time that if you're going to have a D&D game where combat is a possibility, but your player characters find a way around it without engaging in the combat. They find a way to deal with it diplomatically or with espionage or subterfuge. If they find a way to turn enemies into allies and manage to weave through the moral implications of all of that, that's worth a lot of experience too. That's worth as much experience, if not more, than actually getting into the fight and winning it. But there are a couple of folks in the party who are strictly combat oriented. The PC NPC that I am playing being one of them. And, you got to throw them a fight. And if you're going to throw them a fight, it's a party of 6 paladins. 6 paladins. And you got to find some big stuff every so often, because they will just mow through anything else. Believe me, I know, I've tried. Grand Melee starts. All of these dwarves are seasoned veterans. Every suitor and everyone in the retinue is there with a purpose. Not all of them are there to attack Brother Wayland's and his party first. It's last man standing, so whoever is the last person, no matter what, if it's a suitor or a member of his retinue, if that last person is the only person there. Last person, the only person there. I got to write that one down. That is the group who wins. That is a suitor who is going to get the blessing. It was a little chaotic at first, but Since I knew the agendas of the suitors, uh, the party sat back for a turn. A couple of folks walked out there to get into the fight, started to get into tactical positions and throw a couple of unexpected tactical spells. Nalgene, Josh is playing Nalgene, our kobold monk paladin, who is just ruthlessly effective in combat, not necessarily because of his straight up combat abilities, although those often come in handy. He manages to, he's got a cloak of the arachnids, a couple of other things, and when you get one of those little weird talents or power from an item or something, Josh will plumb that to its depths and find ways to use it that I had never imagined, which is why I do this. So they start off with a little combat and a little crowd control, just trying to get a feel for the group. And yeah, there were some folks that were beelining for them, but there's a lot of infighting amongst the suitors. And all of that, down to rolls, was all straight combat. I knew who had what, and some of them were the druid. The druid was a problem early on. Good old Shrubtooth. He snuck a possessed treant into the fight. Brought it in invisible and pretended to summon it. It's a treant that he had raised from a very timid sapling and twisted into something that was soulless and evil over time. The good core of the treant trapped in the body that was under the control and direction of the druid. And the treant was the biggest problem in the room. It's a big forge, did I say? The grand forge hall of the high dwarves. Yeah, there was room for a treant, and it made itself known fairly spectacularly. So while there was backstabbing and infighting, and the up and coming high dwarven prince, the most likely second in this fight, was just getting worked by a Muppet and a lady in plate mail. The treant started grabbing dwarves from one group and pitching them into the forge. At which point, the paladins realized this is not right. There is something wrong here. There is something very bad happening. Because that's... I don't care how bad the fight is supposed to be, that's just not cricket. The druids group was the only group using full-on tactical approaches. They would not engage in one-on-one fights. They would do 3-on-1, 4-on-1, or 6-on-1, but they stayed in a fairly tight formation, protecting the suitor and surrounding individuals from other groups that got off to the side and just stomping on them until they stopped moving. That's in one half of the room. The other half of the room, the treant is either menacing someone or pitching someone into the forge. A fight is an amazing place to find out who people really are. A fight to the death it wasn't supposed to be a fight to the death. To unconsciousness. Last person who could be standing. If you just took the legs out of everyone else in the room, you'd have won. But there was one group, the suitor, the names are already leaving my head. It's been a little bit. The suitor Blingflinger, he was stabbing people with a knife that was poisoned with a ancient and evil necromantic concoction that turned the knife into a knife of soul stealing. He was eliminating people metaphysically from the fight. He managed to get one person down that way before, everyone got on top of him because they realized what he had, or realized that what he was doing was, you don't bring poison into a fight like this. Well, most people wouldn't bring poison into a fight like this. Again, they're finding out who these people are. Sir Filbert Felthart, the Muppet-born paladin of the Hand, got severely injured by the Crown Prince of the High Dwarves when he elected to rage and started beating people back. There was a prop in the side of the room. I thought it was a prop before I realized how good it could be. It was a dwarven auto hammer, just a giant concoction of cogs and levers that could drop tons of pressure onto something to save the dwarven hands for the fine work and just do the pounding of mass amounts of metal. And Felbert was grabbing people by their throats, holding their head in the auto forge, putting a hand on a lever and telling them to surrender. And surprisingly enough, most of them did so. Normally, he is a 2-foot-tall Muppet. He has to pop up from behind walls in order to talk to people, mostly to teach them the alphabet or to tell them they're being bad because he is a paladin after all. But when he rages, he's one of the big Sweetums-style Muppets, a full bodysuit that is just felt and terrifying because there's a lot of fiber fill there. He's pretty strong to begin with. I love having a strength-based Muppet combatant in the fight. I'm really hope I have a chance to play him in someone else's game at some point in time. And the party, Sir Maddock, Eric Cochran, Paladin, Noble, and you better never forget that he's a noble or you will get the lecture and the pamphlet, and there will be a test later. But Eric Cochran catches some air while Nalgene the Kobold is running upside down along some of the bracing in the room. Maddock is catching air and getting an aerial view, surveying the thing and taking his tactical shots. Mostly magic, a few spites. The party is doing very well. I expected the party to do well. Then one of the other dwarves, the dwarf who gets pitched into the forge first, does not die immediately. Does not die for 4 or 5 turns. Keeps making his rolls not to die, but the screams are starting to get to people. And one of the other combatants, not from that dwarf's team, drops his weapons and tries to climb the forge to see if he can get him out. And he's not going to make it. This is clear. The forge is hot. It's always hot. It's powered by heated by the core of the planet. So there's no cooling it without blowing the planet up, which wouldn't have helped anyone in this room. And the dwarf that's climbing the outside of it is not equipped to climb a forge today. He is going to burn himself to death on the outside of it. If he does get to the inside, what's he going to do? It's a long way down. He's got short, stubby arms, and we don't know. And so one of the paladins, Lady Sonia. See, I'm already losing names. Wednesday night can't come fast enough. Everyone in the group has a wish. They got a wish early on from Gian talked about why I like to give wishes to low-level players and see what happens. And Sonia burned a wish that those 2 dwarves would be safe. Saved both their lives, and the Treant started doing other stuff to other folks because, well, their forge was free. Lady Sonia rushes up to face the Treant face to face. Because that is what she does, and she is astonishingly bold. Jonathan plays her amazingly well, and she got pitched in the forge. Just picked up and hurled in the forge. There's very little she could do. She's got a nice athletic scale, but it's a Treant, and it's strength versus strength, and she got pitched in the forge. I created a mechanic for the victory system. I created it for hot chicks, but it's perfected in the victory system. It's called the deal. I've talked about the deal here. You want to do something the game doesn't exactly cover. You want to do something that your character shouldn't be able to do at the moment. Maybe there's a reason for it to happen. It's out of the question. It's not the kind of thing that I'd ever let happen, but I'm willing to make a deal. You want to do something that's absolutely impossible? What are you willing to give up for it? Make me an offer. Let's see what we can work out. I love it when people are willing to cast aside character resources to make things happen. Sonya sacrificed a magical sword that had been serving her very well, using it to bury at the side of the forge as she goes down so that she can hold herself out of it and use it to climb out. It is going to weld to the forge the moment she does this, and she does it. Burns the deal, gets the sword into the side of the forge, gets out, and starts looking around for whatever she's going to beat the Treant to death with. Bulwark, our Warforged Paladin of the Duke, a skeleton with a trumpet who is the god of chill. Bulwark is manufactured out of not the standard Warforged materials, but he was built from a pipe organ. He is played by my son Andrew, and I could not be more proud. Bulwark is burning higher level spell slots and making the deal, burning higher spell slots than he has to on certain spells to get more effect, basically doing crowd control, trying to get people stunned and calmed so that she can get some folks in a better state of mind to not be murdering each other in this ostensibly sociable fight. We have Sir Grey, our skeleton paladin. I'm still working out all the mechanics there. Our friend Blue putting in work. A little busy offline while we were dealing with this, so no one got hit with a door this time, but I expect we'll be making up for that lost time later on. All in all, the Treant gets almost to the point where he's going to take another swing at stuff, and Sir Matic has had enough and moonbeams it. Moonbeams the crap out of the Treant. Finally finishes taking it down. The Druid has shown his true colors. He is evil. He tortured this Treant until it became what it is. Well, what it was, because it got burned down by a moonbeam. The groups get whittled down a bit at a time. This fight took us 3 hours. 3 hours well spent. I have not laughed as hard or had as many thrills of stuff going on. My heart sank into my stomach when the Treant pitched Sonya into the forge. What else was he going to do? That's what he's doing. He's in the fight. She steps up to him. That's what would happen. That's a special thing I can do because I trust these players. Is I will put them in some severe danger. I will do things that would kill another player character, because I have a very strong feeling that if one of them can't work their way out of it, the group of them will. Having that kind of a faith in a group gives a dungeon master a lot of freedom to do some things that are dramatic and dangerous and seem life-threatening, if not life-ending. And, well, you know, most of the time, they make it out. But some folks got worked. Almost everybody got some amount of damage. Brother Waylon doing work with a pistol and a rifle in the middle of this fight because no one told him he couldn't bring them, and well, the heck with it. If they're using soul steel and poison and treants, pistol and rifle, perfectly acceptable. Duel of honor with guns, let's go. And dropping his sheriff hook from across the room until it was down to the druid, who was about to do some pretty shady stuff when Bulwark, Paladin of the Chill, about half of his rituals are based on the use of medicinal herbs. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. He is a pipe organ. He hotboxed the druid. And with a thunderous wave, informed the druid that he was disrupting the chill, a punishable offense to Bulwark's religion. He said, and at this point, Andrew says, I really feel like doing something terrible to this guy. The whole group just like, yeah, go. Me included, because the druid was very evil and needed it. And so Bulwark used a command spell to tell him to get into the forge. That was the second best part of the night. Because the druid failed and starts crawling on his hands and knees over the rough terrain that was created by the thunder wave. Well, it's actually an earthquake spell, I think. They're going to do some repair work in the smithy. Start crawling on his hands and knees over rough terrain to feed himself into the forge, crying the whole time. And the entire time, Maddox puts a moonbeam on him and holds it there the entire time that the druid is crawling over to the forge. It was an initiative roll to see if the druid was going to get in the forge before the moonbeam killed him, and he didn't quite. He was trying to feed himself into a forge when he dissolved under the pressure of moonbeam. Fight over. Congratulations, you have defeated the other 5 suitors, and Brother Waylon received the blessing the week after. I can't write action like that. I wish I could. I couldn't sit down and put that in a script or a novel, but I can set up the circumstances that make that possible in a role-playing game. The reason I can't do that is not because I don't trust my abilities as an author. It's because I will never write action the way 7 people can write action. 7 other right people focused on the same thing at the same time, with the same picture in their minds of what's going on, describing what happens. More, these damn things. Okay, these damn things. Random number generation is literally the wild card in these situations, and between that magic of 7 minds together, focused on a single scene, trying to come up with what would be the most effective, the best action, the thing that would not only do the most damage, but have the best chance of hitting and would look coolest at the same time, pulling up abilities from back pages of the sheet or the footnote of a spell. The spell does this, but it also does this. So I'm going to do that. All of that stuff's amazing, and then maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. And if it works, it's awesome, and you've got to cheer and things are happening. And if it doesn't work, then you're scrambling, trying to find out how to compensate for that in the next turn, because you got one more action coming next turn if you don't die, and not dying is kind of important. You get adrenaline, you get tension, and you get endorphins. It's addictive. If you know your group, you can prepare towards this. You don't over-prepare, because if you've over-prepared, you've got details about things that you're going to want to bring out. You're going to feel bad if you don't get details out. 70% of the dwarves on the field, of the NPCs in that fight, never had a chance to speak, never had a chance to express any character. They were literally cookie cutters of one another. So there wasn't much point in me having a comprehensive character sheet for each of them. I knew what their numbers were. The suitors expressed the most personality in there. I wanted them to come across because that's going to affect things politically down the line. But much more than that, and having a place for everyone to fight, and a couple of surprises in the background, the Treant was way more effective than I thought it was going to be. You have a couple of things like that, and that's it. That is it. Everything else is improv off the top of your head as you are going, or just letting things happen organically. Letting the party suggestions and things that come to you that seem right in the moment be your guide. Take practice. It is not something I recommend for a new game master. If you have not been running games for, if this is your first game, or you haven't finished doing an adventure or maybe even a campaign yet, a little more prep might not be bad. Written material backing you up might be a good idea if it's good written material. But you will get a feeling for what should happen at this time. You will get a feeling for the story and how it flows and how you can nudge the situation one way or another. And that's just practice. Practice, getting to know your group, getting to know the players as well as their characters. How do they think? How do they strategize? How do they analyze the situation? What are they looking to get out of this evening? And then you give it to them. When a combat, you give them a combat. They want a chance to show off their character, you give them a chance to show off their character. Yeah, give them some competition in showing off, because it's always better to beat someone out when you're showing off. Or maybe there's someone there that is meant to drive them a little bit harder. Maybe they need a challenge or a challenger. And maybe you produce a nemesis, someone who might not be their combat foe, but is trying a rival for a public office or the affection of someone, or maybe even just someone who wants to show that they're better than the player character and give the player character an opportunity to find out that there's a danger of that happening and then beat the other person to a pulp, metaphorically or not. I've said it before, I've said it again. I will start my year with it, and I will carry it through. The story that you are going to tell amongst everyone at the table is better than any story that any one of you can tell. And then all of you get to walk away from that table with that story. To bring back to moments where you remember, you get that gleam in your eye and that chuckle, and you want to share that feeling. Get some of those endorphins back, because you earned those. Those are yours. Or you want to carry it to another group. And, this one time we did this one thing. Or you want to take that to another group and bring it into those games. It's like, well, I learned something in a game a while ago. Let me see how it works here. Maybe it'll work the same. Maybe it'll work better. Maybe it won't work at all, but you get to adapt it to a new group and a new style of play. It's the best hobby in the world. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And, yeah. Don't over prep. Don't under prep, don't over prep is a real easy thing for me to say. Let me put it in a more helpful way. You can easily create more details than you will need. You can create more story than will be necessary walking into something. And you'll drive yourself nuts creating all this amazing stuff that you really want people to see that they're not going to see. they're going to go another direction, not going to go through that door. They're not going to talk to that NPC. And you can bring some of it back around to put in front of them, but sometimes what you've created is not going to be what people are going to get in front of their eyes. And that sucks, and you feel like you've wasted some time. You can tuck it into your folder for a later time. You can always be grist for the mill later down the road, but when you are crunching to get to that game and you've got another thing, you just got this one more idea that would go so great, save it. When I say don't over prep, I mean leave plenty of room for your players to throw detail into the world. Let them do a little bit of the exploration or explanation. Let their backstories talk a little bit. And give them things that bring that out. That will serve you so much better than writing detailed analysis of the backgrounds of all the NPCs and super detailed maps of the streets and the stores and the people. Because you could do that. You could absolutely do that. If that's your jam, go for it, but don't think that it's all going to come into play. If you wrote the most detailed supplement ever to happen with hundreds of pages of notes on players and on characters and NPCs and political factions and what's happening down this alley and what's happening in that restaurant and how they make the coffee down the street, you could do that. I've done that. And you'll use 10% of it, if that. 10% of it. That big book you've got of all this stuff to put into a D&D game, you'll put that into a number of D&D games because no group is ever going to hit it all. Even if you push it in front of them constantly, don't over-prepare. Leave your players room to fill some stuff into the world themselves. They've got their characters and their backgrounds, and even though they've only got that one character to focus on, there's a lot there, and that's what they've been focusing on. Let it come out. Leave room. Well, I guess more of a rant was called for beginning of the year. It's been a while since I've really gone on a tear like this. Thank you for following me along. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy the video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. If there's anything else you'd like to hear me talk about, subjects you'd like to hear me cover, stories you'd like to hear me tell, go ahead and leave me a comment down below. I will love getting your comment, and you'll love leaving me one. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, why not? My channel is awesome. You might want to hit the subscribe button. If you do, please hit the notification bell as well so that you're alerted when my videos become available. If you would like to contribute to my channel in a more substantial manner, I invite you to hit me up on my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum, and consider donating. Absolutely anything helps. Allows me to make better videos more often. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I'm Scott Corum. This is What Has Mattered to Me. I'll see you next time on the next Matters of DeCorum.